Hi. Of course, you know me. I'm Denny, and sitting with me up in the corner there is Ellen Jensen. She's delightfully agreed to just hold the space for me to be able to have this conversation with all of you. And then if she wishes to make a comment, she's free to make a comment anytime she wants. I just wanted to bring something to your attention that I thought would really be important. And for those of you who are practicing the cycles and seasons month by month, this is the second month of the season. In the Northern Hemisphere, this is what's called the four girl month. The first month being that of the two girl of feeling, and that's mother's mother. The second month being the great grandmother, which is mother's mother's mother. And the reason why this is so significant is I'm pretty sure this may be one of the most significant places in the entire sequence of the year. Part of that reasoning is inside this location is a whole series of skill sets, meaning that is natural attributes or abilities, sometimes called virtues, that are available to us. And part of my own duty in this or purpose is to explore it on my own, with most of you doing somewhat of the same. Though this is my second year of going through the sequence, and I'm really noticing I'm learning so much more on the second year than I did the first. And part of my task is to enable your journey to be more effective for you than it really was for me. So I'm asking you to consider some of these things. What it is you'll see in the background behind me that there are a series of lines and words. Now, the words that are there are picked for a reason, and they're not like written in stone that have to be absolutely these, because I can assure you there's been about a dozen more other words I put up here at times, and I'm trying to, as usefully and as accurately as possible, identify the words that correspond to the skill sets of the heart. Now, the heart has two parts. The forward part of the heart, sometimes called the yang of the heart, is occurring right now in the southern hemisphere. The yin of the heart, or basically the feminine side of the heart, is occurring in the northern hemisphere. Again, that's the second month of the autumn season. The autumn season holds three different grandmothers. These three different grandmothers, they do so much work, it's hard to really explain what all of it really is. It has everything to do with cleaning and transformation, and everything to do with the water in the body, but also the feelings and the consciousness of the person, and then also the ability of our person to connect through feeling to higher consciousness. Anatomically, the heart knows what to do. The physical heart knows how to pump blood and how to be able to send the blood over to the spleen and the kidneys, and then occasionally over to the liver and to the lungs, and even to the skin to be cleansed and purified. And oftentimes people forget it's also through the breath that the blood is purified and the body is cleansed. In this process, these three grandmothers, they are capable of being unified into a single unit. So part of the function of the autumn season is learning to consciously acknowledge each one of them one at a time, and then consciously be willing to merge them together in feeling. Now, the first two, mother's mother, is automatically connected to the mother's mother's mother because of a epigenetic sequence between them that involves the mitochondrial DNA. So as you probably already know, the mitochondrial DNA only passes through the mother and her mother and her mother. So it's a lineage of women that opened up this interior metabolic emotional link. Now, biologically, these links have very definitive functions and they have specific molecules they use in nutrition, and there's certain molecules that actually will equilibrate their symptoms more readily than other ones. But we're not really talking about the molecules at the moment. I'd like to talk to you about the ones just above it, which has to do with the emotional interface of the body into the energy body or etheric body, or eventually into the astral body. At this link between the physical body and the astral body, there are a series of voluntary gates or attributes that have to be recognized consciously in order for you to be able to begin the process of enabling them to be an instrument that will be available for you all the time. For example, one of these would be called the ability to receive. Now, all of us need to learn how to receive, but eventually the ability to receive on a higher level gives you the capacity to be able to know what to receive and what not to receive. Later on, we'll describe how that works, but this is just an introduction that each one of these different points and several other locations has keywords. I'm really encouraging you to examine these keywords. And this diagram, by the way, will be available on the RAYID International Facebook posting. It'll be there for you to see, and you can download the image yourself and print it out if you wish. Now, just so you know, I'm changing a few of these. For example, one of them, my favorites at the top here, called Grace, which is closest to the heart, I'm probably taking it out, even though I like it, that we might consciously choose to have grace of the heart, but boy, that's a pretty high aspiration that I'm not quite willing to say I'm capable of doing. But for me, grace is something that really comes from the divine, not engaging our choice necessarily. We don't need to ask for grace. We can, I'm sure. But sometimes grace just comes because it is a gift from the divine. So these attributes that you see around here are really designed to be the ones you can practice opening. For example, one of them has to do with metamorphosis. Now, I went through some period of time looking at the difference between metamorphosis, transmutation, and transformation, how to transpire all of it in some form or another, to transform or transmute. I know all these words are challenging, but they're important. The difference between metamorphosis, which is really shifting within one's own self, changing from, if you will, the metaphor of the caterpillar that becomes a liquid before it becomes a butterfly. This is a process of metamorphosis, but different than transformation and different than transmutation. So later on, these differences of what is transformative versus what is a transmutation, these are different skill sets that you can begin to open. I'm suggesting that you at least acknowledge them intellectually. It doesn't mean you have to be able to completely understand them yet. But there are some key words that I'd like to bring to your attention that are voluntary. For example, the one at the bottom is gratitude. You're not required, nor is an anatomical automatic function, for people to have gratitude. You know that, that's perfectly logical. But I'm suggesting that this is a place you can voluntarily experience the increase of gratitude. Now, part of my function around gratitude is it also means I have received it. Now, part of this is we're suggesting to you that you use the protocol so that whenever you're triggered by something that you'd really like to blame the other person for, that you might consider that gratitude means I have received it. Now, for some people that sounds odd. Why would you want to receive the trigger from another person into your own heart? And I'm suggesting that if you do, you're enabling yourself to be able to transform, transmute, change, release. There's a whole series of other words you can use. Cleanse, purify. There's all these words that are possible after the experience of saying, I have a sincere desire to feel the truth about this feeling. So I'm suggesting each one of these words is capable of you spending time with. There are some really wonderful words in there, and there's several that I didn't put in here, but I put in some of them. To renew, rebuild, restore. And I've really gone through these three different differences of renew, restore, regenerate, and so on, and including resurrect, and the ability to be able to have active principles in the heart only by the choice to want to develop it. So what I've learned by this, unless I'm actually willing to engage a sincere desire to use it at a higher level, it's not necessarily going to be done automatically. I'm suggesting that this series of skill sets, for example, one of them not up here is the ability to screen or filter, or being able to accept without allowing it to come through. For example, we want to be able to filter mass consciousness. It's not necessary for all of mass consciousness to flow through your energy field. You can learn how to be able to clean, transform, accept what you want, discern. The ability to be able to know all these differences really comes from the acknowledgement of the skill sets. Now, I'm saying something that may be obvious to many of you. You can't use it if you don't acknowledge it. For example, there is a skill set in this category that would be called forgiveness. Forgiveness is automatic on the divine level. It's not automatic on the human level, and that's a whole nother discussion. But the ability to be able to use forgiveness to open, transform, restore your own heart. There's so many good things in here to look at. Later on, we might have a discussion about how to use this active principle in each one of these different vectors or gates. For example, you have to be really aware when you start to say, I'm going to forgive that person. When most of the time, the people that have come to us with some kind of a trigger, they're bringing our law of attraction because of what exists inside of us. And it's really easy to go, okay, I'm going to forgive you. When in reality, the answer would be gratitude. Okay, so you wrecked my car while I was standing in the house. I obviously wasn't in the car, but you wrecked my car. You hit it with your car. You ruined my car. Well, the chances are it was your law of attraction that was going to happen at exactly that time on that day, and something was going to happen. It's very hard to go, I don't understand all of this, but everything is perfect in some way. Thank you. Now I'm going to go look for the thing I need to feel in this situation to help me cleanse, purify, transform, transmute my own heart, clean, filter, restore, rebuild, and the ability to be able to receive love. Because the reality is, unless I'm choosing to want to receive love, it's very hard to actually receive it. I don't know about you, but I'm not really, heroic at the ability to be able to receive love. No way. I have a long ways to go. So I'm practicing these skill sets of learning how to feel. Later on, we can talk about the friendship side of this, which is the ability to be able to want to give love while somebody else simultaneously wants to receive love specifically from us, and we can exchange it. That's one of the skill sets up here that has the ability to be able to give and receive. So I'm urging you to take time with it during this particular month and next month as well. But I'm reminding you that this is the third week of the second month. Now, I know that sounds a little picky, but we also just went through a lunar eclipse just a few nights ago, which is a powerful effect on me. It gave me cause to pause and realize what I also needed to do. But the third week of the month, in every month, has to do with social dynamics. And oftentimes that's social dynamics in your community or your work or your profession. Social dynamics, which means you're involved with interacting with other people, usually a social emotional environment, meaning you're actually coming in contact with people, not just the concept of a group. You're coming in contact with coworkers, and you can also have family in this group, though that's typically a lower part of it, usually in the first or second week. This is about working things out in the community, fairness, justice, equilibrium, sharing. Whole series of things are available in this third week. The third week is instrumental in implementing these attributes. So by the time the fourth week comes, your ability to accelerate into what we would call the positive side of this collection of attributes, you can learn how to be able to utilize them more actively. So I know that's a lot of words for you to be able to go through at one time. Just consider what this looks like. And I'm going to provide here in the coming weeks some bibliographies of each one of these words and their pairs of possible other words, just so you can compare what it would feel like to go through metamorphosis versus transformation versus any other attribute that is involved in this. Now, there are sensory-oriented experiences, there are extrasensory levels, and there's higher ones. The two categories, the upper emotional voluntary ones and the divine ones, they can only be open with your sincere desire to do that. So I hope this is at least encouraging for you to examine these things and to take a look at yourself and to be able to use these words as a gate. So, Ellen, thank you for holding space in this. Do you have anything you'd like to add to this?
Well, it's my pleasure, Denny. I so enjoyed your class that I was at recently in Connecticut with you and Randy. I have been practicing these words and these feelings quite a while, and I'm wanting a little clarity on transmute and transform. Maybe there's an example you could give between transmutation and transformation that would make it a little more clear for everybody.
Yes, transform means that we're going to add to additional traits or qualities within a specific species. So for example, a particular bird species, they can be adding, genetically adding additional forms of transformation. Transmutation would mean there be such a genetic shift that's a new species of bird. That it's not like the old one, it's now two species of birds rather than one, and that's a transmute. That they're both relative to the DNA. If you look up the root of the meaning of the words, one of them is more about the process of evolution and adding qualities or attributes gradually, but transmute has to do with a quantum leap and a change of direction in the DNA to a higher species. Now, theoretically, the human being, the human soul, has the capacity to become a divine soul, and that would be a celestial soul, which would be a transmutation from a human being into something more akin to the angelic realms. and that would require an infusion of divine love to achieve that result. That would be truly, well, transformative combined with transmutation. Well, anyway, I'm
And
looking forward to that.
remarkable.
Oh,
Just, it would be remarkable. Well, today is November 9th, so I'm trying to figure out the third week, you said. It
yeah.
seems like the second week to me.
Well, the timing really starts around the 20th to 21st of October. So it's somewhere around the 27th or 28th. Right in there is the first, and the second week is the 7 more days. So that by the 9th, we're just beginning the process of going into that third week.
That's very, yes, I understand now. Okay. Well, it's wonderful to have these words to work with, and working on ourselves with love and gratitude, and working on our triggers to release so we can grow. So I thank you for all you're doing to bring this information to us.
Thanks, Ellen. Maybe we get a chance to do this again sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you, Denny.
Thank you for holding space. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.